My name is Olivia. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a political science major here at NEC. During your campaign, you've said that you believe that being transgender is a mental illness, and in your 10 truths, number 2, you state that there are two genders, despite the increasing body of evidence proving that neither gender nor sex is a binary. How do you justify your rejection of the science?
So what's your name? Olivia. So I do respectfully disagree with you that the science comes down on the side of the question that you assert. We respectfully disagree on that. Think about the premise baked into the LGBTQ plus movement broadly. The sex of the person you're attracted to is hardwired on the day you're born, so goes the assumption, even though there is no gay gene. It had to be that way to qualify as a civil right. But now we're saying that your own gender or sex identity is fluid over the course of your life, even though there are two definitive sex chromosomes. XX, you're a woman. XY, you're a man. Now, for most of our history, all the way including through the DSM-5, if we want to go into the scientific understanding of this, that was classified, gender dysphoria was classified as a mental health disorder. And understandably so, the risks of suicide are higher in people who suffer from gender dysphoria. I believe it is a condition of great suffering. I don't think that we should deal with this with derision. I think the right way to deal with it is with compassion. But I think especially when it comes to kids, we have two different categories here, adults and kids. We live in a free country. If you're an adult, you're free to identify and behave however you want as long as you're not harming somebody. But kids aren't the same as adults. And when it comes to kids, affirming that kid's confusion is not compassion. It is cruelty. Actually, we're in New Hampshire. When I was here in New Hampshire on an earlier trip, I met two young women who underwent permanent physical changes to their bodies. Both of them had double mastectomies, cut off both their breasts. One of them had a hysterectomy, took out her uterus. They're in their 20s now. They regret those decisions. They will never be able to change those decisions that they were permitted to make. So we live in a country where you can't get a tattoo by the age of 18. You can't smoke an addictive cigarette by the age of 18. I don't think you should be allowed to undergo genital mutilation or chemical castration until the age of 18, till you're at the age of consent. Now, if you're an adult, you want to be one gender and dress according to another, it's a free country. I'm not going to stop you. But I think that this is going to be something we look back at 20 years from now, what we allowed those two young women to do who now regret it, and view it as a form of barbarism. And the other thing is, if gender dysphoria really is a source of suffering with heightened rates of suicide or otherwise, why is it we're going out of our way to create more of it? We know it spreads. Why is it that New Hampshire, the state we are in right now, is a state that could not even pass a simple bill in the legislature that said parents have the right at least to know if their kids are identifying as a gender different than their biological sex? That doesn't make sense, because if the risks of suicide are higher or self-harm are higher, it's part of the argument why, take the Supreme Court this year, it was celebrated as a victory by the LGBT movement, that transgenderism or that transgender status counted as qualifying for the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. So we can't have it both ways, keep talking out of all sides of our mouth. If that qualifies for special benefits under the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, fine. We have to recognize that this is a condition that requires compassion but not affirmation. And parents, if they have their kids in a local school, yes, they do have the right to know. And the fact that that's become controversial shows how dislocated we have become from truth on this issue. So I will respect my principles of freedom for fully consenting grown adults, but kids aren't the same as adults. We have to recognize that truth and act accordingly. And I don't think that the so-called science is on the other side of me on this. I think that most of our national history, including most of psychiatric history, suggests exactly what I'm describing. I think we probably have the shared motivation of compassion for people. How do we do what's best for people? But we have a different view on what's actually going to be best for our children. And I respect our disagreement, but I want to give you where I am on that. Thank you, Olivia.